When I arrived at Avelton, the small poor village deep in the wilderness, I never imagined I would be drawn into such a dark world. The stories about the bottomless lake had always lingered in my mind, but I never imagined that the truth would be far more horrifying. The sky was overcast and the grey clouds covered the heavens, with weak street lights failing to dispel the heavy atmosphere. I went to find Margaret, the only one who survived after the lake swallowed others, hoping she would tell me the story of the haunting deaths. Margaret lived alone in a small hut, and she seemed to have lost her sanity. She just sat there, her eyes hollow. When I asked about the lake, her eyes shut, then opened wide. Suddenly, she began to repeatedly chant in a shrill voice, "Don't go near the lake at night. Don't go near the lake at night. The screams, they're there. Tom is there." In her eyes, I saw fear and obsession. I was curious about the name Tom that she mentioned, but all I knew was just that name. Tom. "Don't go near the lake at night. Don't go near the lake at night. The screams, they're there. Tom is there." She repeated again and fell silent, her eyes vacant. I looked around her hut, hoping to find more information, but there was nothing but an old picture frame in the corner of the bed. She survived, so I could too. I couldn't give up. My curiosity pushed me to confront the fear the entire village had tried to deny. I wanted to know what that lake was, and I wanted to know who Tom was. Perhaps Tom would answer the questions in my head right now. When I arrived at the lake that night, the heavy rain drowned everything in dark shadows. The lake was pitch black, like an unhealable wound on the earth. The surface of the water was still, without a single ripple, and there was no sound. Silence, terrifying and deadly. I walked close to the lake's edge, and a chill ran through my body. Suddenly, the surrounding space was filled with an eerie silence. There was no wind, no rain. Everything seemed to be sucked into an endless void. This space wasn't just still. It had a weight, as if something was watching me from the bottom of the lake. I threw a rope into the water, hoping to find the bottom. But instead of feeling the rope touch the bottom, I only felt emptiness. The rope never hit anything. I dropped a few weighted objects, but they immediately vanished, as if the lake was pulling them into an invisible place. I heard a soft hissing sound beneath the water, as if something was breathing or creatures were watching me from below, waiting. A cold sensation enveloped my entire body. At that moment, I heard a noise from behind. Heavy footsteps, as if someone was approaching. I turned around, but saw no one. However, I sensed a strange presence, as if a figure was standing just a few steps away, and I could hear their breath. Then a voice came from beneath the water, a voice that did not belong to the living. "Don't look down." In that instant, I couldn't resist. My eyes were drawn to the water, and then I saw a blurry figure, eyes hollow, so transparent that I could see the soul within. I quickly looked away, but it was too late. An invisible force, like a vice, tightened around my throat, pulling me toward the edge of the lake. I tried to scream, but only choking breaths escaped. Something beneath the water started to pull me down. I woke up in a pitch black room, not knowing how much time had passed. The damp earth stuck to my face. I looked around and realized I was in an abandoned warehouse. A feeling of nausea and coldness washed over me. I felt like I had been pulled out of the water, but I couldn't remember what had happened. And then I heard a small sound from the corner of the room. A man was hanging, his body stripped of all skin. The man's body slowly spun, and when his face turned towards me, I truly panicked. His face had no eyes, no nose, nothing. Instead, there were crisscrossed stitches all over it. Suddenly, a shrill voice beside me made me freeze in fear. "Hello, newcomer, dear Tom." It was the old woman, the only survivor. But now, her eyes were no longer empty. They were black as night. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My whole body was strapped to the wooden board beneath me. "What did you do to him?" I asked, my voice trembling in fear. "Tom didn't listen. Tom must be silent. Those who don't listen must remain silent." Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through my head, through my entire body. Images of horrifying deaths flooded my mind. Whispers echoed in my ears. I saw Margaret leading a child toward the lake. The child bowed his head as he walked, and then the child turned and smiled at me. Was that Tom? I returned to the lake once again, but this time I no longer feared it. Only emptiness and despair filled me. The lake was not just a bottomless pit, but a cursed place. It was a void that swallowed everything, not just bodies, but souls as well. Everything around me was no longer real. There was only an invisible force controlling me, and I could not escape. I looked into the lake, and this time, I could not stop looking at those eyes, the eyes that had been submerged in eternal darkness. A powerful force pulled me so hard that I nearly lost consciousness. Inside me, a scream erupted, but it was not mine. It belonged to thousands of souls. They were calling for me to join them. At that moment, I knew I had become part of the bottomless lake, and I would never escape. The villagers no longer saw me, but the lake remained there, silent, waiting for new arrivals. The warnings about the bottomless lake still echoed, yet there were always those who were curious, those daring adventurers who came to test their fate. And how many more would be forever trapped in those horrifying, inescapable spirals? Those who don't listen must remain silent.